He kills me with tears in his eyes. And then he kisses me like he forgives me. The dream always ends the same way. A grand hall bathed in golden light. A man standing over me with trembling hands. His blade is sharp, ceremonial, stained with blood that I know is mine. He's crying, silent, shattered tears, as he leans down and kisses my forehead. A farewell. A prayer. Maybe an apology. And then, blackness. I woke with a sharp breath, heart pounding, the sheets tangled around my legs like vines. My skin was damp with sweat. For a moment, the light filtering through my window looked like the glow from the dream. Gold, distorted, too warm. It was just morning. Again. Moonlight books smelled like old pages, cinnamon tea, and floor polish. It was my sanctuary, my little pocket of peace away from a world that moved too fast, expected too much, and gave too little. Here, between creaking shelves and handwritten labels, I could forget the dreams that haunted me. "Morning, Yuna." Miso's voice came through the open door. She peeked in with a paper bag in her hands. "Brought you melon bread." "Again?" I smiled, forcing the weight in my chest to lighten. "You're going to make me dependent on you." She winked. "Maybe that's the plan." I took the bag, our fingers brushing. No flash, no vision. Just warm, ordinary contact. Relief. For a moment, I was back in my body. We chatted for a few minutes, about nothing and everything. Miso's classes, a new romance novel she hated, the weather. She left with a grin, leaving me alone with my books and a strange, rising unease I couldn't name. That's when the doorbell chimed again. And he walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a sleek black coat despite the warm day, with dark hair combed back like something out of another era. His eyes were a storm, deep gray, almost silver, and the moment they met mine, the room tilted. He froze. So did I. The space between us buzzed, sharp and alive. My breath caught. I didn't know him. I couldn't. But something deep inside me recoiled. Or remembered. I gripped the counter to stay upright. "Can I help you?" My voice came out too steady. He stepped forward. "You're Yuna." It wasn't a question. I blinked. Sorry, have we met?" He smiled. A slow, painful thing. "Not in this life." A laugh bubbled up in my throat and died there. "What?" He took another step, too close. The smell of cedar and smoke wrapped around me. My fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. And then, his hand brushed mine. Just a brush. Flash. Silk under my fingers. A dagger in my hand. My heart racing. A golden chamber. His eyes filled with tears. My voice screaming. I couldn't hear it, but I could feel my throat rip with it. The vision vanished as fast as it came. I stumbled back, gasping. My hand shook. The stranger, watched me like he expected that. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. "You're remembering," he said softly. I stared at him, my heartbeat thunderous. "Who are you?" "My name is Lee Jun." His voice was calm, gentle, dangerous, and I think we were married. A long time ago, the bookstore felt different after he left. The air was too still. My hands shook as I tried to restack the books he touched, though I couldn't remember him touching any. The place where his fingers had grazed mine still tingled. Not from heat, but from something colder, older. I should have closed early, but I didn't. Because if I closed the store, I'd be alone. And I didn't want to be alone with the memory of his voice. Not in this life. Twilight bled through the stained glass panels of the front windows. The warm hues should have comforted me, but instead, they made me feel trapped, like I was being watched through rose-colored glass. Then the bell rang again. I flinched. It was him, Lee Jun, still in that same black coat, like he hadn't moved since this morning, or since another century. "I just want to talk," he said, hands raised in a strange gesture of surrender. "I don't," I reached for the door behind me, ready to bolt through the back alley. "You need to leave. I remember your death," he said quietly. "Because I caused it." The words struck like a slap. I froze. His voice was calm, but something cracked beneath it. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. But I held the blade. "I watched you fall." I opened my mouth, but no sound came. My mind screamed denial. My feet moved. I ran. The cafe 2 blocks down was nearly empty. I shoved myself into a booth in the back, ordered a tea I didn't want, and stared out the window. My reflection stared back, pale, haunted. Was I losing my mind? It was the only explanation. Nightmares, hallucinations, strangers who talked like ghosts. Maybe I needed to see someone, a doctor, a therapist, anyone but him. And yet, I could still feel his fingers on mine. I looked down at my hand. Perfectly normal. No sign of burning or bleeding or glowing. Just skin. Just me, right? That night, the dream was worse. I was in a bedroom, massive, elegant, and undeniably royal. Silk curtains drifted in a breeze from an unseen window. A mirror reflected the image of a woman in a lavender gown. Me. But not. I was older. Colder. There was weight in my posture, in my eyes. A crown sat on my head. I turned, and he was there, Lee Jun, in royal armor, kneeling, reaching for me like I was salvation and damnation all at once. He touched my hand, and the world went white. I woke gasping, heart threatening to crack open my ribs. I staggered from bed and went straight to the store. Barefoot, robe over pajamas, not caring that it was barely 5 a.m. I needed answers. I needed solid ground. The bookstore was quiet, the kind of silence only paper and old wood could create. I flipped on the back light and wandered aimlessly until my fingers landed on a book I didn't recognize. A thin, leather-bound volume without a title. I pulled it off the shelf. As soon as my skin met the cover, it burned. Not in pain, in recognition. A pulse ran up my arm. I dropped the book. It fell open on the floor, and on my wrist. Something lit up. A mark, faint but glowing. Intricate curved lines like an ancient seal, blooming just beneath the surface of my skin. I stared at it, breathless. Then the door opened. Lee Jun. Of course it was him. I spun on him, furious. What the hell is happening to me? He didn't answer. His eyes dropped to my wrist, widening in awe. Or fear. "It's awakened," he murmured. "The seal, the bond." I stepped back. "Don't talk like we're in some fairy tale. This isn't real. You're not real. But you feel it, don't you?" he said, stepping forward. "The memories, the flashes, the ache when I touch you. That's not imagination, Yuna. That's our past, demanding to be seen." He reached for me again. This time, I didn't flinch. When his fingers brushed mine, another vision came. Not a violent one, not like before. Just a moment. We sat in a garden, in the past. I was laughing. He was smiling at me like I was the only thing in his world. And I had loved him. God help me, I had loved him. I pulled my hand away. "I didn't ask for any of this. I know. I wanted to stop." "So do I," he said. "But it won't." The next evening, I wandered. I told myself it was to clear my head, to shake off the residue of another vision that had hit me while shelving books. But really, I was running, from the mark on my wrist, from Lee Jun's eyes, from the way my heartbeat fluttered when he said my name like it still belonged to him. The cherry blossoms were in bloom. The city park was washed in pastel pink, petals drifting down like slow snow. The world looked dreamlike. So much so, I had to remind myself it was real. I sat on a bench beneath one of the larger trees, folding my coat tighter around me. The spring evening was warm, but I was cold anyway. "You look lost." The voice startled me. I turned and saw her, a girl, maybe 19, maybe timeless. dressed in a sleek black coat that didn't quite touch the ground. Her umbrella was open, though no rain had fallen. It was transparent, laced with gold symbols along the edge. Her hair was silver white, her eyes almost too still to be human. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "No. But I know you, Yuna." My body tensed. "How?" "I'm not here to hurt you." She sat beside me like we were old friends. "I'm what's called a guardian, a keeper if you like, of time, of balance, and sometimes of stubborn souls like yours." "I think I've officially lost it," I muttered. "I get that a lot," she said cheerfully. I stood up. "Okay, I'm going. This is too much. I don't want to talk to anyone about souls or time or—" "You were bound to him," she said calmly, "before your first death. And again, now—" I froze. "Bound?" I whispered. She nodded, tapping the tip of her umbrella against the pavement. "A seal was created at the moment of your death, a curse, a promise. Depends on how you look at it. It stayed dormant, until your souls crossed paths again." I remembered the way the mark had glowed, how it pulsed whenever Jun touched me. "What happens if—" "I ignore it." She tilted her head. "The seal is alive now. If love is not returned, if either of you chooses to reject what still ties you together, one of you will vanish. Vanish. Not die, just be undone. As though you were never here." I laughed, breathlessly. "That's insane." "Maybe," she said. "But it's real." Back at the store, I locked the door behind me and immediately turned off the front lights. I wasn't in the mood for customers or more strangers telling me my reality was breaking apart. Instead, I went to the storage room and pulled out a blank journal from the back shelf. I needed to make sense of it all. Of the dreams, the flashes, the mark. On the first page I wrote, "Dream and Shend one, he kills me. But he's crying. His hand trembles. I don't fight. It feels final. But also familiar. Dream into lavender gown. I'm a queen. He kneels. He touches my hand. I think I loved him. I think he knew it would end. Vision from the bookstore garden. Laughter. He says something I don't hear. I remember the way he looked at me. Like I was light. Like he didn't deserve me. I paused, fingers trembling. Then wrote, "The seal glows only when he touches me." Is it a warning? Or a promise? I touched my wrist. The skin was bare, but when I pressed 2 fingers gently to the place where the seal had appeared, it flickered, just faintly, like a heartbeat beneath the surface. Later that night, I stood in the center of the store, all the lights off except the single bulb in the reading nook. Shadows filled the room, stretching along the bookshelves like something alive. I should have been afraid. I wasn't. I was waiting, not for Lee Jun. Not exactly. For answers, for a reason. For something, anything, to make me believe I hadn't just invented a tragic fairy tale in my head. A gust of wind shook the windows. I pressed the journal to my chest. Maybe the girl in the park wasn't real. Maybe none of this was. But the ache in my chest was. The pull. The dread. The knowing. And that seal, glowing faintly even now beneath my skin, whispered that the story was only beginning. The cafe was quiet, save for the soft clinking of porcelain and the low hum of jazz playing from a speaker overhead. Rain tapped gently against the windows, blurring the city into smudges of light and shadow. Lee Jun sat across from me, still and calm, as if he didn't notice the way my fingers gripped the edge of the table or how my eyes kept flicking to the exit. "I know you don't trust me," he said softly. "That's putting it mildly. I don't blame you." I took a breath, steadying my voice. "You said you remember my death." "I do," he said. "And everything before it, every moment, every word I spoke to you that I wish I could take back, every silence I should have broken. I remember the way your eyes looked that night. Just before I lost you, my chest tightened. Why now?" He hesitated, gaze lowering to the cup between his hands. I've been aware of you for a long time. Not clearly, not consciously. But I would see someone crossing the street and think, that's her walk. Hear a laugh and feel something break inside me. His voice dropped lower. And then I saw you. Really saw you. In that bookstore. And it was like everything that had ever been wrong in my soul suddenly pointed in your direction. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Instead, I closed my eyes. And the world shifted. The hall was lit by candlelight. Silken banners hung from gilded arches. Laughter echoed between marble columns. I stood in the center of it all, dressed in a flowing gown of deep crimson, embroidered with gold thread. The air smelled of jasmine and warm wine. Music played, a waltz, soft and melancholic, and he stood before me. Junie. But not the Jun from this life. This one wore a dark royal coat lined with armor, his hair longer, tied at the nape of his neck, his hands gloved but trembling as they reached for mine. I placed my palm in his. A wedding. Ours. He looked down at me with something like awe and whispered, I vow to protect you, no matter what. Even from myself. I gasped as the memory released me. I nearly knocked over the tea on the table. Jun's hand shot out to steady the cup, and in doing so, brushed against mine. Another flash. This one burned. Stone floor. Cold chains. A blade drawn. Me. On my knees. Blood at my temple. Crown ripped from my head. Him. Standing above me in full ceremonial armor. Face pale. Eyes full of pain and power. A scroll in one hand. A decree. My execution. My voice, raw, please. His, forgive me. And then he turned. Left me to die. I yanked my hand back, breath ragged. The pain in my chest was too sharp to ignore. I remember the wedding, I said, my voice cracking. You said you'd protect me. He closed his eyes. I meant it. You also left me chained in a stone chamber with my death written on royal parchment. His eyes opened, shining with something fragile and furious. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. I stood up, heart pounding. You chose power. You chose betrayal. And now you want what? My forgiveness? Another chance? No, he said, rising slowly. I want nothing from you. I came to give you the truth, even if it ruins me. I stared at him. In the low light, he looked older. Not in years, but in weight, like he had carried centuries of guilt behind those steady eyes. My hand trembled against the table. Not from fear. From memory. From the ghost of love still buried somewhere beneath my skin. I walked out without another word. And he didn't follow. The elevator opened with a soft chime onto the 39th floor. Steel. Glass. Silence. His office felt more like an observatory than a place of work. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretching across the skyline, the entire city laid out in shimmering gray below. No warmth. No life. Just the cold perfection of control. I'd told myself I wouldn't come. But the sealed envelope hand-delivered to the bookstore this morning had been too precise. Too personal. Come. I owe you more than the truth. Jay. So, here I was, standing in the belly of the machine he commanded. Jun stood at the far end of the room, staring out at the skyline like it held answers. You came, he said without turning. Don't flatter yourself, I replied. Curiosity is a curse. That made him smile, but just barely. He turned to face me, hands in his pockets, expression calm. Guarded. I won't waste your time, he said. Yes. My company owns the development rights to your block. Charming, but the project's been on hold since the moment I walked into your shop. I crossed my arms. You expect me to believe that wasn't a coincidence? I expect you to believe I'm trying, he said, stepping toward me. Trying to make different choices this time. I said nothing. He gestured for me to sit, but I remained standing. He didn't push it. I didn't know who you were at first, he admitted. I only knew the bookstore felt wrong, familiar, like a memory I couldn't touch. And then I saw you, and everything unraveled. He walked slowly to the table near the window, picked up a file, opened it, laid out the contents. Aerial photos, architectural drafts, zoning paperwork. He slid them toward me like an offering. I fought to freeze the project, he said. Even when the board questioned me, even when it cost money and time, they don't understand what's at stake. I glanced at the papers but didn't touch them. You could have lied, I said. Could have told me you had nothing to do with it. I don't lie to you anymore. I looked at him then. Really looked. His suit was perfect. His tie knotted with precision. But his eyes, they were exhausted, not tired, worn, from years of looking and never finding. Why now? I asked. He exhaled, voice low. Because I've spent every life since yours, looking, and every time I thought I'd found you, it wasn't real. A voice that was close, a glance that reminded me. But the soul? The soul never matched. I swallowed hard, throat suddenly tight. And now that it has? I asked quietly. I'm not here to trap you, or win you, or rewrite what I did, he said. I'm here to remember, and to give you a chance to forget. If that's what you need. I didn't answer, because I didn't know what I needed. Back in the bookstore, the world was smaller again. Warmer. Real. I moved through the aisles, running my fingers along familiar spines. Here, things didn't change. Here, there were no echoes of forgotten crowns or seals beneath the skin. And yet, his words lingered. I'm not here to win you. That somehow made it worse. Easier to believe him. Harder to resist him. He remembered me. All of me. My laugh. My fear. The way I flinched when storms rolled in. He remembered the shape of the woman I once was. The queen, the wife, the betrayed. Did I want him to remember? Or did I want him to forget? If he forgot, would I stop hurting? I leaned against the ladder near the poetry shelf and closed my eyes. The seal on my wrist pulsed softly. Not glowing now, but present. Alive. A part of me. Just like him. You haven't been answering my texts. Subin's voice rang out behind me just as I finished restocking a top shelf. I turned, nearly dropping a stack of classic novels. My younger sister stood at the door with her arms crossed, and that familiar "don't lie to me" look on her face. I've been busy, I muttered. In a bookstore? She quipped, stepping inside. Unless you're secretly a librarian spy, you have no excuse. She walked straight to the counter, eyes scanning me with precision only a sibling could manage. You look tired. Are you eating? Why do your hands keep twitching like you're seeing ghosts? Because I am. I forced a smile. Just dreams. Weird ones. I'm fine. She frowned, clearly unconvinced. Dreams don't make your eyes look like that. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want to know. That evening, as I was locking up, a voice called out from across the street. Yuna. I turned and stopped short. Il-ho. Of all the people to run into. He crossed the street with a casual wave, hands in the pockets of his navy jacket, hair slightly tousled like he hadn't changed since we broke up 2 years ago. You live around here? I asked, confused. Nah, he said with a grin. Just passing through. Saw the sign and thought, no way that's your bookstore. I didn't believe him. Il-ho didn't just pass through neighborhoods. He calculated every step. Still, I forced politeness. It's mine. Been here a while. He looked past me, toward the window. Looks like you've made it into something real. There was an awkward pause. Then he said, You look different. Different how? He shrugged. Quieter, but also not. Like you're listening to something no one else can hear. My heart skipped. That's cryptic. Even for you. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. You seeing anyone? I didn't answer. Ilho's face darkened just slightly. Because there's a guy who's been sniffing around this block. Tall, fancy coat, eyes like ice. My stomach turned. You don't know anything about him, I said. I know enough, he replied. He doesn't belong here. And he's not safe? I took a step back. What are you doing here, Ilho? His jaw tightened. I just wanted to make sure you're not walking into something you can't walk out of again. That struck too close. I opened the door and looked at him coldly. Thanks for the concern. But I'm not yours to worry about anymore. He didn't argue. He just left. Later that night, Subin called. I found something weird, she said, breathless. What kind of weird? She sent me a photo. It was a scan of an old newspaper article, yellowed with age. I enlarged it, my fingers trembling. Mysterious disappearance of noblewoman stuns community. July 1923. Below the headline was a grainy photo. A woman in a formal dress, long, dark hair, a distant expression, familiar eyes, my face. No, not exactly, but close enough to raise every hair on my arms. Where did you find this? I whispered. Library archives, Subin said. I've been researching some historical family names for my thesis. This popped up. You think it's me? I think it's someone who looked just like you. 100 years ago. And she vanished. Just like that. My throat was dry. Do you know her name? Subin hesitated. It was blurred, the documents partially damaged. But get this, she was last seen attending a royal wedding, with a man no one recognized. A pulse flared at my wrist. I looked down. The mark was glowing again. I stayed in the store long after midnight, lights low, journal open. I traced the photo with shaking fingers, then turned to a blank page. Entry 4th. There's a version of me that lived 100 years ago, or someone wearing my face, and she vanished, like a story that was never finished. Entry 5th, he says he remembers everything. But what if I don't want to? What if remembering breaks something I can't fix? The shop creaked softly around me, books settling, wood breathing. But outside, the shadows felt sharper, like someone or something was watching. The vision didn't come in a dream this time. It hit me in daylight, sharp, sudden, as I was shelving a book on ancient dynasties. One moment, I was brushing dust from a hardcover spine. The next, I was there, golden light, a vast hall, my wrists in chains. The walls shimmered with opulence. Tapestries embroidered with phoenixes and serpents, marble floors cold beneath my bare knees. Soldiers lined the walls, rigid as statues. Whispers filled the air like smoke. Fear, disbelief, betrayal. And him, Junie. Not the man I knew now. The one from the dream life. His face younger but carved with exhaustion, dressed in royal robes heavy with insignia. He stood before a council of elders, scroll in hand. His father sat slumped on the throne behind him, sick, fading. Jun read the decree aloud. His voice didn't shake. Lady Yuna is hereby sentenced to death by royal order for crimes of treason and conspiracy. The scroll trembled in his grip as he finished. His eyes didn't meet mine. I opened my mouth to speak, but the chains around my wrists rattled louder than my voice. I heard myself say, "Coward!" He walked toward me. The guards didn't stop him. When he knelt beside me, I saw the tears in his eyes. "I didn't want this," he whispered. "But if I spared you, they would have taken everything. My father, the crown, the entire empire, and what am I?" I whispered, "Nothing?" His hand brushed my cheek. He kissed my forehead. "Forgive me." And I, with all the fury and heartbreak left in my soul, whispered back, "Then may you be reborn. And pay." The rooftop wind stung my cheeks as I stared out across the city. I hadn't realized I'd walked all the way up here until the skyline hit me. Lights shimmered across the buildings, distant and cold. And behind me, footsteps. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. You saw it, Jun said softly. My fingers tightened around the metal railing. The hall. The chains. The decree. I didn't answer. I've relived it 1,000 times, he continued. But nothing compares to seeing it through your eyes. I turned slowly. He stood a few feet away, still and solemn in a dark coat, like the night itself had wrapped around him. You let them kill me, I said. You read the sentence yourself. He nodded. I did. You kissed me like I meant something, and then left me to die. I know. The wind howled between us, a sharp whistle through the railing bars. I hate you, I whispered, and it felt true. Every word, every wound. He didn't flinch. You're allowed to. I trusted you, loved you. My voice cracked. And you made me a footnote in your legacy. Jun stepped closer, slowly, carefully. I didn't come tonight to ask for your forgiveness, Yuna. I came because I needed to hear you say it. That you remember. That you know what I did. I do. Silence settled between us, thick as smoke. I looked at him, really looked. At the man who had once held my heart and crushed it beneath a crown. And for the first time, I didn't see a prince. I saw a man unraveling under the weight of 1,000 regrets. You made your choice, I said. And now I've made mine. What is it? I won't forget. But I won't run, either. I want the truth, all of it. Even if it breaks me. His eyes softened. Then let me carry some of the weight with you. No, I said. You don't get to share it. You gave it to me. He nodded slowly, accepting. And for the first time since all of this began, since the dreams, the seal, the visions, I felt something strange. Not closure, not peace, but the first breath of it, the kind that comes after a scream. The old square beneath the clock tower was empty. No cars, no people, just wind and moonlight pooling across the cobblestones. The air felt suspended, like the city had stopped breathing. I waited there, unsure why I came, only that I was pulled, as if the seal on my wrist had become a compass. The clock hands above pointed to midnight. He appeared out of the shadows. Lee Jun. He looked different in this light, not older or younger, but softer, stripped of power, of pride. Just a man carrying too many lifetimes behind his eyes. I asked her to meet us here, he said quietly. Who? The guardian. And then she stepped out from under the tower's archway, black coat billowing, golden-tipped umbrella resting against her shoulder. She looked younger than time itself, and somehow older than both of us combined. You brought him willingly, she said, addressing me first. That's rare. I swallowed. What do you mean? She glanced at Jun. Most who beg me for a way out. Don't wait to ask permission. I'm not here to run, Jun said. I'm here to give her a choice. The guardian's gaze sharpened. You understand what it means? He nodded. If she wishes it, you'll erase my soul from the cycle. Permanently. My heart seized. What? I stepped forward. That wasn't the deal. There's never a deal, the guardian said. Only balance. Jun looked at me then, eyes clearer than I'd ever seen them. If it frees you, if it lifts the weight, then let me be undone. You can't mean that. I do. You're asking to die, I whispered. I already did, he said gently. The day I lost you. Silence. The guardian lifted her hand. The seal on my wrist began to glow faintly, in rhythm with my pulse. Speak it aloud, she said, if this is what you choose. I opened my mouth and hesitated. Because in that moment, I saw it. Jun. Fading. His body shimmered at the edges. His form wavered like smoke. The seal on my wrist flared brighter as his light dimmed. No, I breathed. The guardian's hand lifted higher. Stop, I said, louder now. I don't. He turned to me, smiling softly. You'll be free. I never asked to forget you. I cried. I only wanted to stop hurting. A tear slipped down his cheek. Then let me go. He began to fade. Something inside me shattered. I ran. The distance between us closed in a heartbeat. I grabbed his hand, and light exploded between our palms. The seal blazed gold, brilliant and alive. Jun gasped, eyes wide as the fading reversed, his form re-solidifying under my touch. The guardian lowered her hand. "Well then," she murmured. "A choice made." I stood there, shaking, his hand in mine. "I didn't forgive you," I said, breathless. "Not yet." "I know. But I couldn't lose you again." He nodded slowly, voice tight. "That's enough." The guardian's eyes flicked to the glowing mark. "The curse is broken. Not by forgetting, not by punishment, but by choosing the pain, and still reaching for each other." She turned away, already disappearing into the shadows. "You have this life now. Use it well." And then, we were alone, still holding on, still trembling, but no longer haunted, just real. The bookstore had changed, not in its bones. The creaky wooden floor still sang under my steps, and the walls still breathed the scent of paper and time, but something in its soul had shifted. The front windows now framed more than books. They framed stories, my stories, our stories. I'd added a gallery space near the back, where sunlight pooled through old stained glass and kissed a display table in the center. On it lay a worn journal, open to the first page. "Dream first, he kills me." But he's crying. Visitors came, quietly. Not many. Some read, some left notes, some wept. But the store belonged to me again. And for the first time, so did my story. Every evening, just before I flipped the sign to closed, he would arrive. Lee Jun, without fanfare, without expectation. Sometimes he brought tea, sometimes a book he thought I'd like. Sometimes he said nothing at all, but he always came. He never crossed the threshold unless I opened the door. It was our silent agreement: no more fate, no more ghosts, only permission, choice. Sometimes we talked about mundane things: the bakery down the street, the annoying seagull that kept attacking my delivery boxes. Other times, we sat in silence, letting the past settle in the space between us like dust. Not forgotten, just not choking us anymore. One evening, as twilight draped the sky in indigo and gold, I locked the shop and found him waiting under the street lamp. He wasn't dressed like a prince or a CEO, just a man, a little tired, a little hopeful. "You're early," I said. "I like the quiet." He replied. We walked. The sidewalk was still warm from the day, and the lanterns above flickered gently. The city moved around us, but we were wrapped in a stillness that felt earned. "I've been thinking," he said, not looking at me. "Dangerous?" He smiled. "About this life." I stayed quiet. He slowed to a stop near a little storefront that sold old vinyl records. "I don't want to be your destiny, Yuna." I turned to him. "I just want to be your choice." His voice was steady, but there was something raw beneath it. Something that asked nothing. And everything. The words settled in me like soft rain. I stepped closer. "Then stay," I said, "until I choose again." His breath caught. A sound barely audible, but full of something so real it tightened my throat. He nodded. Not a vow, not a promise, just presence. We stood beneath the lantern light, two souls no longer bound by past lives or broken vows. Just here, now, choosing. And for the first time in all our tangled history, it felt like a beginning.